I'm Shelby.
And I'm Courtney.
We're exploring our past, looking forward to our future, and living for the present, all while learning how to live magically.
Hey, Shelby, what was your takeaway from this week?
My takeaway is if you're going to do it, go all in. Commit fully to whatever it is that you're doing, whether that's starting a business, a hobby, a career, life, a marriage, jump right in. So that is my takeaway. Would you agree?
With both feet. Yeah,
With
you got to
both
just do it.
feet.
It's amazing to me how she pulled off all the things that she's done. And it's amazing. So I can't wait for everybody to hear all or nothing.
Today on the podcast, we have our friend Ashton, who you may know her as Mom on the Monorail. She also owned Walter Rosie Candle Co. And we learned all about her story of, truly, incredible story. So I know it's a little bit of a longer podcast, but give it a listen because she has some serious great takes. And I think we can all learn a lot from her as a business owner, as a mother, just her living life in general.
Absolutely.
It was great. And I probably started getting a Southern accent by the end of that. You did. Did I?
A twang.
Which is probably a good thing because rumor on the street is some people think my voice is monotone. So I was trying to switch it up a little. All right. It's a really great episode. Give it a listen and let's do this. Hey.
Hey.
Hello.
We have our first guest.
So excited.
This, we've touched base on this, but we're going to briefly, Ashton is also from the infamous Facebook group, how we all became friends. And
Candle Queens.
It was a candle group. We're going to jump into that. But I thought before we have a lot to go over with you, Ashton, but I thought before we do that, we should give a backstory about us meeting beyond the Facebook group.
Definitely.
I told our listeners, probably the first episode, that we got in a car together and drove 6 hours.
Yeah, I felt like that was the Cliff Note version, right? Because it was a little snippet.
It was a snippet. It was I lived in Alabama. You lived, 3 hours from me?
I think so, about 3. And I woke up at 4 a.m. and drove to you to be there super early so then we could drive the other 5 or 6 hours to Disney from your house.
And I remember something that you said was beyond getting in a car with a person I've only texted, I also why did you trust me to drive 6 hours? How was I?
And do you remember how bad it rained on us that couldn't see? Your windshield wipers are going so hard and I was like, oh dear God, I don't know how good of a driver she is. And this is a downpour. And we were in Tallahassee. We were not all the way there.
No, it was raining so bad, a Florida rain. And I'm obviously in New Hampshire. That doesn't happen often. And you just trusted me to drive.
I remember the night before we went, it was either my mom's birthday or her birthday dinner. And I guess I didn't tell, I was married already. So Patrick knew, but mom and dad didn't know. And they're like, you're going where with who? And I was like, yeah. And I remember them looking at Patrick and Patrick was like, she's real. And I'm like, okay, well, yes, she is real.
It's just, we should probably don't do this at home. Don't go get in a car with a stranger, but also do it. Cause now we're best friends and it worked out. So
I'm telling Patrick, she's not a catfish. We talk every day and I'm seeing your Facebook, real life posts of things we've been texting about. I was like, there's no way she's the catfish right now. It's not happening.
So I was real. It all worked out. And then we drove down to Florida and that's when we met Courtney.
Yeah, I was going to say, we saw a bunch of people from the Candle group, right?
Yeah. And we met Courtney for the first time and then the rest is history.
Yes.
Basically. That's the story. Okay, we're just going to jump right into this because we have so much to talk to you about. So Courtney's going to take it away.
We do. Yeah, I'm here for all things business. So I want to know everything about you, but particularly about Walter and Rosie. Okay?
I'm ready.
So can you start from the beginning? How did you acquire Walter and Rosie?
All right. So of course we were in the infamous Facebook group and I don't remember if the previous owner like alluded or mentioned to maybe selling it. I don't remember if that happened or if I just like dreamed that, but I do remember telling Shelby, I think I'm going to like casually tell her if she wants to sell to let me know. And I mean, on a random Wednesday, I was like, hey, if you ever want to sell this business, ask me first. And no less than a month later, she reached out and was like, hey, I think I'm going to sell, and like gave me numbers. And here I am, 5 months newly married, coming to my husband. And I'm like, hey, I want to quit my job and I want to buy this business with money we don't have. So we're going to need to take out a business loan to buy it. And I want to do it like today. And he was like, what? Like, so like taken back. My dad's a big entrepreneur. So I was like, I can do this. Let's do it. Patrick is the dead opposite of that. He's more so now that we own the business for 5 years. But at that time, that was like, he's very like, you do this job, you get this amount of paycheck every 2 weeks, like not much of a risk taker. And I was like, hey, we just got hitched. I'm gonna quit I was an x-ray tech. So
I was going to say, you weren't like.
Right. It was a stable job. I'd been there. I mean, I was approaching 10 years of working there, and I was like, hey, I'm done with this. Let's borrow this money and do this. And he was so taken back, but clearly he got on board and we ended up buying the business. So
that is crazy.
I remember because the candle company was originally from Florida, the previous owner, and you like got in the car to drive to like meet her and pick up like what she did have.
We went like, because we were both still working, so like we both got off work at 5 and like drove. It takes like 9 hours with the kids. We probably made it 8 before kids, and so we drove, get there at like 2 a.m. Spent 2 nights at Disney, and then like the first day we went and got like, after we bought the business, we got all of her leftover like supplies and stuff, and she gave us like a Cliff Note version of how to make a candle, because you can't learn that in a 3-hour period of seeing her. And then we like went to the parks the next day, and then we drove home Sunday night so we could all like be back at work Monday. Because I think I'd put my 2-week notice in, but it wasn't up yet. So
you bought the business, like you literally was like, I'm buying the business and I'm quitting my job. You didn't try to buy the business, see how this goes, and then quit the job. You were like, I'm out.
Right. Well, for 2 reasons. My personality is very like, I am all in or I'm all the way out. I don't do things halfway. And if I'm like not good at something, I'd rather just not do it. Mm-hmm. And then also I remember telling Patrick, I know that I can make this successful, but I can't do it if it's an afterthought. I can't do it if I'm working 8 to 5 and I come home and I need to work. I could work late if I needed to, but if we want it to succeed, I got to give it 100%. And I remember promising him I could pay back that loan in a year, and I did. I was like, I promise we'll do it. I'm going to pay the loan back. That's not going to add debt to the family. The business is going to pay it back. And it worked out. But I did. I was like, I'm not going to do both. I put my 2-week notice in like the day we like signed the papers to buy the business. So.
I love that. Like, I got this.
Ultimate commitment. So what you said that you like either mentioned it to Samantha, the previous owner, or something happened that you found out, but like what made you want to approach her about that in the first place?
I honestly don't remember what sparked it. I do remember thinking I'm very numbers analytical. Like originally when I went to college, I was getting a math degree. So I'm very like numbers, do things a certain way. And I remember looking at it from the business side, I mean, like I can run that business. Like I know how to make it grow and I know how to make it excel. I don't know. And I don't know why I thought that. I'd never owned a business before then, but I was confident that I could do it. And the funny part is like looking back, I was confident in that side of it. And I was so concerned of the creative side of it. I was like, how am I ever going to create a new scent or a new product? That's not me, which is really ironic looking back, because at the end, that's what I loved the most. And that's probably the only thing I miss about owning is the creative part of it. But at the beginning, I was like, I can do the numbers, I can run the business side, but how in the world am I going to create a new scent and a new name and a new product?
I was going to just interrupt you because that's where you like exceeded. I just remember you telling me like, I got this idea I'm like, how do you think of these things? So it's really funny that you didn't think that you could do that.
The previous owner, I was even like willing to like pay her a one-time fee if she would come up with new scents, because I had zero confidence in my ability to do that. And then I guess I did it a few times and I was like, wait, I can do this. And it went from there. And
it worked out.
It's kind of like, I think in a previous podcast, y'all said the girl who sold jewelry but didn't wear her own jewelry.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
I realized, I was like, well, I love Disney. So it's easy to create things when it's things that you love and are in your daily life. So once I realized that, I was like, oh, I can do this. And then I did it.
Exactly. For sure. For sure.
Okay, speaking on that, can you walk us through a little bit of what the experience is like making a candle, like from the beginning, first minutes to the finished product?
Yes. I was really trying to, this has been, how many years has it been? 7 years. And I had 2 kids since then. So I was really trying to remember how I did it in the beginning.
Yeah.
So when we first started, we were in our little bitty 1,600 square foot garden home, and our kitchen was not, I can't tell you, I cooked like 0 meals in that kitchen once we, like, it was a candle factory. There was always pots on the stove because we were melting the wax. We learned a trick that if you put the jars, like if the jars were warmed when you poured the hot wax, you know, sometimes they like bubble on the sides, it would give it a cleaner finish so it would look better. So our oven constantly had a box of jars in there just on like warm to keep them warm. We always had wax on the stovetop. And it was, I liked it because there is some math involved. So like, I think maybe I would do it like a week. I would leave orders open and then I would take all of those orders and I'll use fall scents since it's about to be fall time. I'm like, okay, 20 Halloween parties, 6 pumpkin carriages, 5 candy cauldrons. Then I'd have to do the math. How much wax does that need? How much fragrance does that need? And I'd melt that amount of wax on the stovetop and I'd add the fragrance, mix it up. And then while that was melting, I'd have the candle ready. The wick would already be in there. I'd pour it and then they had to sit. I'm pretty sure I let them sit for almost 24 hours before I cut the wick, put the label on, and then like screwed the lid on the jar before they were like ready to go. So it was, there was like a dead time of like drying, and my house was tiny and like there was jars all over the kitchen table, and we had those like pop-up white tables set out that you were like, it was like a maze to get to where we were going, and the jars would be everywhere, and then you'd feel so accomplished and you pour them all, but then I just have to sit and look at them for a whole day before I could label them and package them and put them in the box and get them out of my house so I could like see my kitchen for a day before I started like, it all.
What did we do?
Yes. And it was such a small house. And I didn't say this, when we bought the business 2015, I think it was like end of May. I think the first opening I had was the end of June 2015, and we just found out I was pregnant with Maylee. So not only did we were like, hey, I'm quitting this job, we're borrowing this money, and they're like, oh, hey, we're pregnant. And I don't have an income because I got to pay back the loan first, and I'm trying to do all of this while pregnant. And of course, Patrick's a big help, but that was another added thing that I was pregnant, and eventually I had a newborn and a toddler, trying to do all of that in a tiny house with no space to do it in.
And I remember you eventually bought I remember you telling, I had no idea what it was, but like a machine thing that made candles,
Yes. I thought that was like, it's so funny to think, I'm sure y'all have similar stories with y'all's businesses, but like when you think back and you like made the first kind of step to like grow it, and you're like, this is going to be it. And it wasn't it. It was like 6 steps later. It, but at the time you thought it was it. So that was one of them. It was like a big cauldron, and it had a spout at the end, and it could melt like 20 pounds of wax at once. And Patrick built this stand for it to put in the garage. So the idea was like every morning I would go turn it on, and the wax would be melting. And then if I needed 20 Halloween party candles, I could measure with the melted wax instead of having to measure the wax before it was melted. And I was like, this is going to be so much better. We're going to be able to sell more. I'm going to be able to have more time. And while it did help, the more time made like more time for me to market, which means the sales increased, and I still didn't have the time that I thought I was going to have.
Yeah. But
it's so real.
That's part of growing. And
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And from there, that was like the first big, like, oh, this is going to be it. Well, then we moved houses to a bigger house, and we had a whole similar office to what I have now. We just converted the dining room into my office, and Patrick put like built-ins on the back side of the wall to store all the candles. So kind of like your setup, Shelby, in your like warehouse where you have like your inventory of shirt stock. Yeah. It was like that. Like it was inventory. There's all they were already made. And if someone ordered them, I could just pull them from the shelf and package them. I was like, this is going to be it. But then the sales kept increasing, and my house was just covered in peanuts and boxes. And I remember that entryway of that house, we would just have like stuff that you've shown, like when your car's full, Shelby, and you're going to post stuff. I just have a mountain of boxes. My poor post office worker would come and get them. And it was better, but it was still in my house and all around me, and I couldn't get away from it. And at that point, I was probably pregnant with Maverick with a 18-month-old. So that was a lot to not have like, is she going to eat the packing peanut? Is she messing with the boxes? Is she pulling the candles down and they're going to break? That was a lot.
And because that room was like right when you walked into your house. So it was like no hiding it.
Right. Yeah. If anyone came over, you saw it. Like there was no way to not see it.
Yeah. It was a cute room though.
It was really cute. Yeah. That's why we did the only movie. I was like, I can't not have those built-ins. We're putting the built-ins in the new house.
Yeah.
I love it. Did you, you talked about also like pouring a candle and making a candle is one thing, but there's so much more that goes into it. Like you had to do all the label design and the scent, the name of the scent, and like probably coming to Disney. I remember we would like ride Pirates of the Caribbean and smell it and be like, what is that smell in this part? And like, can we like figure it out? And you would just like, you would create these magical, I mean, they were so accurate too. Like
that's all I think of. Sorry to interrupt, but every time I ride Pirates now, I always think of, because I think we had this whole discussion of what it smelled like, and you were like, gunpowder and something else. I forget, but anytime I.
And it's like gunpowder and fire and
tobacco.
Just the water smell, right? Like that classic Disney water smell.
Or
which
that,
is not
yeah.
But that's something that people wanted, and I never did a pirate scent for like the water scent because I felt like I couldn't match it accurately. And like eventually, as I grew, like more competitors came out, and competitors would do it. And some of my friends would like get them to see like if it smelled the right way, and they're like, "This smells like crap." And I'm like, "That's why I've never done a like." And maybe there's a company now that does it and it doesn't smell bad, but the companies at the time, I was like, "I'm not gonna make this candle." Because that's what it's supposed to smell like on paper, but it doesn't actually smell like, because that was my most requested, like a Pirates of the Caribbean water scented candle. And I could never get a scent that I thought represented it well enough to produce it. And so I never did it.
Well, it's probably really just like chlorined water in humidity with mildew or something like.
Sweat from his summertime. Yeah.
That's really all the smell.
Yeah.
It's gross. But I love that, and I support that. You like, if you can't do it 100%, don't do it at all. Because like there are your candles that you like the ones that you made, you absolutely nailed it. Like Beach Club, you walk into the Beach Club and it's the Beach Club.
Still my favorite.
Pirates, you ride Pirates, it literally is Pirates. Polynesian, I remember because I was delivering gift baskets all the time, and like the lobby used to have the huge fountain.
Yeah.
And like the Polynesian candle, you nailed the water smell there.
Oh, what about Art of Animation? I remember the making of this candle.
Yeah, I really liked that one a lot, and I felt like it was really spot on too.
Yeah, but there's like, you went into like the science behind it to get some sense. I forget, it was like the shampoo or something.
Oh yes. The like the H2O. Side note, did y'all see they're like discontinuing?
They
the
are,
H2O?
yeah. So this is a good look.
No.
Oh, you definitely didn't see your shocked face there, Courtney.
No.
But you.
It was those, yes. And so by that point in the business, like I said, like every time we took a step, I was like, this is it. This is going to be the solution. Eventually we did get to the solution, and we grew enough that I had to make the candles, which took a long time to find them, but I did. And then even at that point, I was still packaging at home, and I was like, this is still going to be it. Still wasn't it. Eventually he gave us some space in his warehouse, and I was able to hire someone to package. So at that point, my job was solely to create, but you're doing social media, you're answering emails, you're answering Instagram messages. That's all me. So while someone else was making the candles and packaging them, I was doing all the other stuff that needed to be done for the business to grow. When I got to that point, that's when I did our manufacturer at the time. I think he had like a contact that would make like custom scents. And we basically sent off, like I had the little vials that I brought home, shampoo and lotion or whatever. And we sent them off, and I think they had a grapefruit touch, didn't they?
Yes.
He sent them off and came back, and they like matched that scent as close as they could in a fragrance roll to put in a candle. And then I did that. I think we called it mousekeeping, right? I totally forgot about that until you just said it. That was a good one.
Because you had mousekeeping, but then you also had like mousekeeping on the seas or something, because they have a different scent.
It was like sea salt.
Yes.
So I added that variation to do that. And both of those, like we got the fragrance, like I guess custom made, but we gave them the inspiration to match it to. So yeah, I forgot we did that.
Yeah. And then let's just go back to when we first started talking. You were like, there's no way that I can create scents. And now here you are making a complete custom scent off of that. So like, kudos to you.
It's not like that's what I was most worried about. And then that was the most fun part, and I ended up getting good at it. And that is the only part I miss. If you were going to ask me if I miss it, that's the only part I miss.
That's the only part.
the only part. I don't miss any of the other, ins and outs of running a business and the emails and the customers sometimes and all of that stuff.
Relatable.
Totally. So you would say like the best part was making up the scents. What would you say was the worst part or the hardest part?
Probably before we got to where we ended, it was just the living where you work situation when part of it was still in the house. That was hard. That was hard before I had Maylee. It was really hard after I had Maylee and Maverick. But once we got to the manufacturer, probably just dealing with customers, because at that point we had a pretty decent following and we were doing really well in sales, and I ran the business the way that fits my schedule to run the business of being a mom first, and everyone didn't always appreciate that. So if things would sell out, people would get frustrated that they didn't get it. So I didn't like dealing with not a complaint. Like if a candle arrived broken, no question, I'd send them a new one. I don't mind those complaints. The complaints that I like purposefully advertised this candle and stocked 10 of them when I knew people, I didn't stock 10 of them. I stocked as many as I possibly could, but
right.
I purposefully wanted to hurt them and not let them buy the candle was not fun to me, because that was not my intent. I wanted to bring everyone joy, but at the same time, like I'm a mom and a wife first, and there was only so much quantity wise I could manage in a week. So
that reminds me of the hand sanitizer.
Yes, I was going to, when we talked about why I sold it, that was going to be my lead in too.
Well, that's my next question. And I don't know anything about this, so I'm excited to learn. Why'd you sell?
Okay. So first, never again, back to my personality of I'm all in or all out. And if I'm all in on something like this, while I didn't start it, it was like a newborn when I got it and I grew it. And so I felt like it was my baby. And I didn't want anyone else to run it. I was like, one day if I get tired of it, we'll just close up shop. And then if I change my mind in a couple years and I want to get back in it, I'll reopen it. And that was my plan. And then the pandemic hits. And while like for you, Courtney, that shut your business down because Disney's not open. You can't do gift baskets. Opposite for me and probably Shelby, especially the little bit, everyone was home and everyone was online shopping. So my sales were like skyrocketing because I guess people were bored. And then I had the idea to do hand sanitizers, and I did forget about mousekeeping. That was good. This one was probably my next favorite after that one. So we do hand sanitizer, and I named it No Touchy after Emperor's New Groove, which I feel like is so underrated. And I loved the scent. I loved the name that I gave it. I was so excited. I was like, people need hand sanitizer. I'm like selling something that people actually need right now in the middle of the pandemic.
This was not middle of pandemic. This was like beginning of pandemic when people could not get hand sanitizer. You were like, you can't get it? I got it. It
had to have been mid to late April. I don't even think it was into May. I think it was
it was early pandemic.
Yeah.
We did have a hard time finding like the bottles that it came in. And we found like maybe 300 or 400 and I bought them. And then we found another 500 and I was like, ooh, do I buy those? What if it doesn't sell? And I was like, well, I'm afraid I won't get them. So let me just go ahead and get them. Surely I'll sell them like before the year's out was my thought process. Like, let me go ahead and get them. They're only going to get harder to get. So I have like literally 950 bottles of hand sanitizer, like little spray bottles. And like 4 minutes, they all sold out. It was absurd. I had no idea they were going to sell that fast. Like I thought the 200 or 300 would go like by the end of the day, not 950 in under 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Unreal.
People were ruthless that they did not get the hand sanitizer. That is the only time to my memory that, I was real active on social media, like showing behind the scenes and like how like Shelby is now on Pixie Lee. Like I was on there, I showed my face, I talked, they knew who I was. And that's the only time I can remember getting on there and like crying because I was like, my intent was not to upset you and for you to say mean things to me. My intent was to try to give a product out that
was needed,
and it was fun for me to make, and I found joy in creating those things. And then I'm just getting like railed because some Susie didn't get her 2 hand sanitizers that she wanted. And even in my Facebook group too, now I had a private Facebook group and they were more supportive and like in defense of me and stuff. But on my Instagram followers, I got the meanest DMs. And so in that moment I was like, is this for me anymore? Because I was really like, I think Maylee and Maverick, how old were they? They must have been 4 and 2. And so I'm really not that I wasn't focused on being a mom before, but they're requiring even more attention now. And a newborn's easy. They lay in that pack and play and I can work all day. Toddlers, not so easy. You have to keep your eyes on them. So, I have to keep my eyes on them. I'm already feeling like, do I need to focus more time on being a mom? And then when that happened, I was like, whoa, I don't know if I want to do this anymore.
Well, because when you get DMs like that, you even like, well, one, we work 24/7, but those comments and stuff, you take that home with you when you're sitting on the couch later, and you just like, you dwell on that and you dwell on that and you dwell on that. So now you're probably not, you're like so stuck on that, you're not even appreciating the time with the kids and Patrick because you're so like fired up.
Right. And then not even the fact that then it took the joy away of like, while I did make a product that was needed, I'm also running a business. So selling out was a huge business success. And I felt like I didn't even get to enjoy the new product that I made and the scent I created because all these negative people were like tearing me down because I didn't stock enough. And I got to the point where I was telling people, I normally didn't, but in that instance, I was like, this is the number I stocked. This was the time this order came in, and this was the time the last one was sold. Like, I did everything that I could. I bought every bottle I could find. There was nothing more I could do. And now let me go work for 2 weeks to package all 950 orders, like to get them out. Like I still got to do that part of it.
Yeah. Well, okay, hold on. Let's give you a quick, like, let's celebrate that you sold 950 bottles of freaking hand sanitizer. Like, oh, I hit the mic again. So there is your well-deserved celebration on that. But you kind of could have celebrated because continue on the selling story.
So that just kind of sparked it in my head. Like, do I want to keep doing this right now? And I wasn't sure, like, fresh in the new part of the pandemic. I'm like, maybe I just close it up for a year and come back in 2020, take a mental break. Like I was kind of thinking stuff like that. And then maybe like a month after we released the hand sanitizers, we had some issues with the person who was manufacturing them. And it kind of just like put us at a crossroads. So I had to decide, I'm either going to find a new manufacturer, I'm either going to just close up shop, or I'm going to have to like go rent a space and buy some actual like candle making industrial type of equipment to go back to me making them. And we
with two kids.
What?
With 2 kids.
With 2 kids, yeah. But we looked at like 2 or 3 different places, and it was like, you might have been like this when you found your place, Shelby. But I was like, oh, this one's so cute. And this could be the office with the computer, and I can hang this stuff, and this could be the room where we make the candles. And then I was like, but I have a 4 and a 2-year-old. And if I'm going to do this, I have to get up and leave the house and go work every day to make the candles and package the candles. And I had one employee that, worked a few days a week to package, so she would have still been there. But it was just kind of like, do I really want to do that? And then I was leaning more towards, let's just close up shop. And my dad didn't give up. He was like, you need to sell. And I was like, no one else is running my business. I'm not doing it. I would rather just close up shop. And he was like, you need to see how much it's going to be to sell. And so finally, literally to just like appease my dad, I was like, Patrick, see about this. And so he finds I don't even know how to sell a business. He finds some broker. I guess that's what you do. And we send them all the paperwork, like all my sales, 5 years of numbers and all of this stuff. And, like my Instagram, how many followers I have, my Facebook group, like all of those things that were worth something to the company. And they sent the evaluation back. And I was like, did they put an extra 0 on that? And Patrick was like, no. And I was like, are you sure? And he was like, yes. And I was like, all right, well, I think we can look at selling. And so then that just kind of like, when I saw what they valued the company at, I was like, well, if that's true, then we're going to sell. And still I was like hesitant because I was like, they're wrong. There's no way my business is going to sell for what they're telling me it's going to sell for. And it pretty much did. It was a touch under, but similar to you, Courtney, they kept me on for like a year and paid me so much a month to just stay on as a contact and create new scents and just help navigate the first year of owning the new business. So that included what the business sold for was almost what they evaluated it at. And it was, I don't ever talk numbers, but just so we know, I sold it for 16 times what I bought it for in the span of 5 years.
Incredible.
What I paid for it.
Another round of applause. So there are those 950 hand sanitizers. That's the celebration. Remember that.
Yes. And Patrick reminds me of that often because I'm sure we'll get to it, but I'm not doing anything right now. And sometimes I feel like I'm not providing the way I need to provide for the family. And he's quick to be like,
I try to remind you of that.
Oh, yes, you do. He's like, we paid some debt off with what we sold it for. We paid the house we're living in now that we built. We wouldn't be in this house and wouldn't have built it if we didn't sell it and put the down payment that we did on it. And so he's quick to remind me, like, you busted your butt for 5 years and that put us in a spot where now we're debt free and now we built this house and it's good for our kids and it's in the school zone we want to be in and all the above. And he's like, that doesn't happen without you busting your butt for 5 years. So it's okay that you're not. I am still busting my butt, but in a different way.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
so
I think you should like go re-listen to the story that you just told us and all the steps that you took to then grow it that way. Like, I didn't know how to make a candle. My kitchen is full of this. Oh, I buy this machine that's going to make the candles for me. Oh, maybe not. Like, all these steps it took. It wasn't just like a walk in the park. Like, you learned how to run a business.
Yeah. Like, and like make the product. Yeah, I meant to say that earlier. Like, we didn't know how to make candles. Now, I'm a numbers person, so I enjoyed it. But we were YouTubing videos. Patrick would call and like the suppliers of our wax, he'd get on the phone with a chemist and they'd walk it through while this mistake was happening. And we just learned on the fly and figured it out.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm just saying, selling the business, well deserved. I'm very, very glad that your dad pushed you to do that.
They got a commission on that because I wouldn't have even looked at it.
Well, don't say that.
It's gone now and it's too late.
All right. Is there anything else on the business that you want to touch on before we jump into the next phase of your life? Or Courtney, any other additional questions?
I'm just so impressed with you. I love your story and I love like how you did it and that you just like how it started. We all loved the candles, right? But you were the one who was brave enough to be like, oh my gosh, well, this is a legit business. And like, I think I could do this. Yeah. That's really cool. Like you were working 3 jobs, weren't you? Because you were an X-ray tech. You were also working at your parents' restaurant.
Oh, so yeah.
The X-ray tech overlapped with Walter and Rosie a little bit. And then I did work at my parents' restaurant at the first part of having Walter and Rosie to help them out. And then eventually, once I had Maylee and I got real pregnant, or before I had her and I was pregnant, I stopped all of those. But I was also a travel agent the whole time. And then I was also coaching the whole time. So I had those 3, but then also like mom being the top job. So it was I was very busy. It was a lot of things at all times of the day.
Yeah. So
impressive.
You are allowed to now do whatever it is you do now, which we will touch on. So another reminder of that. I was just going to say something about the business and now I completely, guess it wasn't that important.
Wow, Shelby.
I know.
What Courtney just said, Patrick now feels like that. And he's like, you knew you could do it. And I went and did it. But man, I wish I would have had to see into the future to be able to video Patrick when I first said, hey, I'm going to quit my job. We need to take out a loan. All of this stuff. Yeah, we just have such opposite mindsets in that way. And now he's like, not that he wasn't my biggest fan, but still today, like last night, he'll say, you're going to have another business one day. Like that's who I am. That's who he's so supportive and helps me be like that. But it's so funny to think how he used to be. And I'm pretty sure he was like, did I marry the right person? Because we're 4 months in and I'm throwing all these big ideas at him. And now we've to the other side. And he's like, hey, you knew what you were doing. I was like, I told you I knew what I was doing.
Duh. I never questioned it for a second. You just said that Patrick said that you were going to own another business someday. Do you see yourself owning a business? Like entrepreneur life is not done for you?
I think I'll do something. Edit that. I have ideas. Patrick even will throw some ideas at me of stuff that I think is really good. It's just the matter of when do I want to like invest in that again, and take that risk again. I think we're getting there as my kids get older. I can't see myself like never doing something. I think it would be really hard to go like back into the world and work in 8 to 5 and do it for someone else because I've done it for myself for so long with the business. And we had the business for 5 years. I was a travel agent for 10 years. So I've been working like on my own time, on my own schedule for a really long time. I mean, I would do it if it was a necessity, but if it's not a necessity, I think I would figure something out for me to do and manage myself because that's just what I'm used to.
Right. And because we're going to touch on it, but then you can fit coaching into your schedule, and coaching is definitely your passion by far, which we'll touch on that. Awesome. Well, congratulations to you. You crushed it. And it was fun for us because like I met you before you had Walter and Rosie, so I really got to see the growth on it, and
Yeah.
we got to figure out business together because both of us had no idea what we were doing.
I even remember when I told you first, Shelby, that I was going to sell Walter and Rosie. You're like, what? And then after I sold it, and then I was like, hey, now I'm going to quit the travel agent. You're like, what? Because I went from doing all the things to like, now I'm just going to be a mom and a coach with no paycheck, so to speak. That was like a big adjustment.
Well, I was shocked because I know that you're very, very like go, 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 and you like to be busy and you like to be doing all the things. So I was like, you know that like you went from doing all of this and now you're just going to go to coaching and being a mom. Like, are you sure that you want to have that much free time? Are you sure? And you were like, yeah, I am.
I found a way to fill it though. So
Yeah, now like I feel like you're actually busier than you were before. Which let's just jump into
for how much busier you get when your kids start school. Like Maylee started kindergarten last year, and I wasn't prepared for not just taking her every day and picking her up, but all the other things that come with that, and like the homework and the field trips and getting this and that. Like I was not, I'm better this year. I was not mentally prepared last year for the adjustment of going to like a Mother's Day out 3 days a week to, hey, you are a full-time kindergartner and there's responsibilities that come with that. So that filled my plate real quick.
Let's jump into you being a mom because you are truly like mom goals 1000%. I tell you all the time that you are truly an incredible mother.
Yeah.
And so I want to start with the first question because this is something that you do that I think I don't even know if you recognize that you do it, but other mothers need to hear it, is how like you stay true to yourself while also being like an incredible mother.
Yeah. I think a lot of that, it's easy because I have a super supportive husband, and y'all know Patrick, and I always like tell people who just meet Patrick for the first time and they're just like, man, just complimenting him to me and like gushing over him because he's the best person ever. And he
really is.
I always joke and I'm like, yeah, I thought I was a really good person until I met Patrick. I feel like I'm a good person, but I feel like he makes me look like not a good person because he's that good of a person.
Yeah.
And so him, he recognizes that I need time away from being a mom. And if it's been a few weeks, he'll be like, hey, you need to go eat dinner with like one of my friends here in town. Hey, you need to go do this for yourself. And like when the kids were little, like Maverick couldn't walk yet. They're like 2 and 1. Ooh, the first year of having 2 was also not prepared for that. That was an adjustment. He'd get home from work and I would just meet him at the door and hand him Maverick. And I'm like, I'll be back in an hour. And I'd go walk around Target or go walk around Books A Million. And he's always encouraged me to do those things. And like now that the kids are a little older, like if school's not in and I'm not coaching, like it's summertime, like I'll go on a walk so I can listen to my podcast when he gets home from work. Like he's always encouraged those things that he knows that I like for like myself. So it's easy to not lose myself because of the husband I have, which he doesn't give me any credit, but really he deserves all the credit. So it's easy. Even if I forget to put me first, he'll come and be like, hey, like I said, like, hey, you need to go. Hey, why don't you go for a walk? Hey, why don't you go? You need to plan a trip with Shelby. You haven't seen her in a while. He's always encouraging those things. So it makes it so easy for me to stay true to myself, I guess, and not lose. It's so easy to lose yourself in being a mom. So he makes sure I'm not losing myself and still I can be me and be a mom. It's not mutually exclusive to be one or the other.
I just like got goosebumps listening to all that. I just love Patrick. And I mean, seriously though, you're like couple goals and he really is an incredible dad. Like watching him being a dad, like should make anybody want to have kids. And so, okay, so you're mom goals. People can follow you on Instagram if they don't already, Mom on the Monorail. And you do these like fun themed days that like I love so much. I want to do them for like my niece. And so where do you come up with these like themed, like where did this idea come from?
Well, like most things recently, it started during COVID and we were home all the time and, everyone was posting all the things they were doing with their kids. And there was a lot of, I'm sure y'all saw it, like really fancy, like sidewalk chalk art people were doing like in their driveways and stuff. And my neighborhood did a good bit of that. And we went on a walk every day and we would go on a lot of walks. And there was like little teenage artists and they decorate their driveway and the kids love to see it and stuff. And I'm not an artist like that, but I can look at something and like get it close if I'm drawing it. So I saw this thing and it was like a little girl laying on the driveway and she was in a princess dress. And it was like think it had Cinderella's carriage around it or something. I was like, oh, I should do that for Maylee. And so Maylee had a Snow White dress. So I was like, let me draw this not great castle, but it was good for sidewalk. I drew a castle, and then the way I made her lay, she had her hand out, and I drew the apple right here, so it looks like she was holding the apple. And so
Cool.
I was like, well, I should do something else, Snow White, since she's like, we've put her in this dress, and I've taken this picture. And so that was like the first time I made a sensory bin, and I did it like Snow White themed for her. And then the next week, so that wasn't really a full day, but it was like 2 activities that were themed to Snow White. And then by the next week, I was like, why don't you do something for Maverick? Because I'm very equal. Like, I'm OCD about they get equal things. And I was like, all right, Maverick, your turn. So he had a Buzz shirt. So I like drew Buzz Lightyear wings on sidewalk chalk and made him lay in the middle of it. And then I did a Buzz theme sensory bin for him. And so I think that kind of sparked it. And I just started like adding to it and adding the food or adding the craft or an activity or whatever. And that's when we were, of course, home for COVID, but also before they started school. I mean, I was home with them every single day. So
yeah. So it made it fun for you.
Yes, movie days, while like when I share them on Instagram, you know, I get comments like, how do you do that? And I'm like, look, if it's not for you, it's not for you. It helps me though, because the days we wake up and there's nothing planned, I'm like, what time is it? Is it time to eat lunch? And it's like 9:20. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to make it through the day. Like when we have a day planned, I'm like, all right, we're doing this, then we're doing this, then we're doing this, and it's going to be nap time. And then we're doing this. And it just helps like my mental health so much if we have a plan of what we're doing. So
I can see that. Yeah.
Work. And it is for them. It also greatly benefits me. And different people, you know, some moms might not be like that in the sense where they don't need a plan and they can thrive with nothing. I don't thrive on nothing. I need a plan and I need to be busy. And so it's like, it has a dual purpose when I plan one. It helps me and it's fun for the kids. So,
well, I think it's like your new creative outlet almost, like, especially after Walter and Rosie, like this is now your creative outlet. Yep. And I mean, it's fun to watch. I can't wait to do it with my kids. You've inspired me.
For the most part, it's fun to put together. And I've always said, I'm not always the most creative, like from scratch, but I will put a Disney spin on anything. So some of the stuff we've done, maybe I saw it floating around. Another mom shared it on Facebook, or I saw it on TikTok now or Pinterest or whatever. And then I'm like, but I could switch that and I could put Mickey ears on that, or I could do that. Like one time I did for a Cars Day, I saw an activity and it was in the summer and they got like this big tub of water with like dish soap. I think they were washing like dogs, like they were giving like not real dogs, like toy dogs.
Yeah.
Bath. And I was like, well, I'm gonna do that with we had a set of Cars bath toys with every character from Cars. And so we had like a car wash and we put it in there. So like not my original idea, but I put a spin on it. And I try to say that on Instagram when it's not my original idea. I try to cite the source. And if I use a template or something, like I'll give the original creator credit. But I always say like, I'm not great from scratch, but I can put a Disney twist on anything you want me to put a Disney twist on.
And it makes everything just better. Mickey ears on anything.
Yes.
Okay, so my last mom question. I know that I want kids. Courtney's a little bit on the fence, so let's convince her. And do you have any advice for like fellow moms or future moms? All moms.
I'm all ears.
I would say, okay, so I have some for both. I would say for future moms, if you're married or even if you're not already married, make sure you're marrying someone like Patrick. Like you have to have that support. You can't do it alone. Yep. I'll see stories and like, you know, maybe like friends from high school or something, or you hear through the grapevine on Facebook and their husbands are just the polar opposite of Patrick. And they feel like they're doing the wife a favor to like babysit their kids and that type of stuff. And if you don't have that support from your husband, you're going to get lost in motherhood and it'll happen quickly because there's lots of mom guilt and you could be the best mom in the world. You're going to have mom guilt no matter what you do. Like you work from home, then, or if you stay at home with your kids and you're like a stay at home mom, then you have mom guilt because you're not providing for your family. Someone's going to judge you for that. If you go out, work 8 to 5, someone's going to judge you because you're not home with your kids. So there's always something to feel guilty about and so much pressure. So you have to have that support. Make sure you're having the kids with the right person, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you always say that Kyle reminds you of Patrick. So,
and very opposite of previous suitors of yours, which is what I first one on a date. You're like, he's opposite of everyone I've ever dated, and I'm like, well, that's probably okay. Like, it's all right. Let's try that route.
Hallelujah. Oh.
Yeah. And for like, if you're already a mom, I would say my advice is you can't play the comparison game. Like you can, whether it's how you're being a mother or like compare your kids' milestones to someone else's kids' milestones, like they're all going to develop at different times. You can't be discouraged because like both of my kids walked really late in life. Like Maverick didn't walk till he was almost 2 and we had to like go to therapy for it. Now he's fine. He's running free, but he wasn't walking because he was really focused on talking, and he was having full sentences at 14, like full conversation, full sentences at 14 months, but he wouldn't crawl to you to tell him to you. He's going to tell you across the room. And then like once he mastered that, he started like crawling and walking. And at the time, like, you know, comparing him to other kids his age, like it's so at the time they weren't doing the same things, but those kids who were running around also couldn't speak full sentences like Maverick could. So I think comparison takes a lot of the joy away because you don't know the whole story, especially on like how you mother. Like,
yeah,
I'm learning now, I can't parent Maylee and Maverick the same. And I'm sure listeners who like have teenagers, like they're probably going to have to parent them different ways. They're going to respond different ways. So just because my neighbor's doing a certain way doesn't mean that's the fit for us. So that's my advice. Don't compare, because you're not always comparing apples to apples, and their way might be right for them, but it doesn't mean it's right for you. Nothing's better or worse than the other.
No, that is like fantastic advice. Also, when you just said that story about Maverick, he makes me think of you, because you said that you're either all in or not. And he's like,
Yeah.
I am all in on talking right now. I don't have time to practice walking.
Him, I'll have to find it and send y'all to you when we're done. He was like 16 months. I have him like propped up on the couch because he's not crawling yet. And we are watching the live action Aladdin, and he can like sing Prince Ali Ababa, like could say it, but he's not going to crawl, but he could say that. And so he was just like, his vocabulary, and it's probably because he was the younger brother and me and Maylee are talking and he had that added stuff, but his vocabulary was like out there, but he was going to be lazy and make you pick him up until he decided he wanted to walk.
I mean, do you blame him?
No, I don't.
Yeah, right.
He was a baby.
Okay, so now, Walter, you've sold Walter and Rosie. You used to be a travel agent. You were a travel agent before, like, travel agents were travel agents in the nicest way possible. And you gave that up, like you said, and now you're a stay-at-home mom and a coach. You coach 3 sports. You coach volleyball, basketball, and softball. When they're not in season, you're like doing team workouts. You're coaching all the time. Like, honestly, you don't have 2 kids. You have like 20 something kids, because you also treat those kids like they are your kids.
I tell them all the time, like every day we're at practice, I'm like, here's my, like, if you're going to make me put things of importance on my life on the totem pole, like here's Patrick, Maylee, and Maverick, and then here's all of you. Like, if I'm not with them, you, and if I'm choosing to sacrifice time with my family to be with you, clearly you're important to me, you know? So I have to remind them of that a lot. I think they know it, but I still remind them of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is like your passion in life. And you were coaching a little bit when you were doing all the things.
Yeah.
So I started coaching, I think I was like 22 or 23, and I was helping my dad because he was a coach and he always coached me and my sister growing up. And I started helping him, and then eventually he retired and I like took over for him. And then I ended up resigning from that school and just focusing on being a mom, being home with the kids. And then again, COVID year, and like a lot, I don't know how it is where y'all live, but in Alabama, I'm pretty sure this is right, I can't just like go be a volleyball coach at the public school. Like you have to be an employee of this school. And like, I'm not a teacher. Like you can't just go be it. You have to have some kind of role within the school. And so when I was coaching at a private school, they have different roles because they're private. And so when I gave that up, I was like, man, I was bummed about it. And I was like, I might never coach again, because where am I going to get an in for another private school? And so then I sell the business. It's like August, and I get a phone call from my previous athletic director. And she was like, do you have any interest in coaching volleyball? And I was like, maybe where? And it was at a different private school that she knew that person's athletic director. They'd reached out to her. So it like got to me through the grapevine. And I kind of went back and forth. And then finally I told Patrick, if I don't go at least look at the school and like interview them and meet them, I'll regret it, because it's an in with a private school. And he was like, yeah, I think you need to do it. So I go and I look, and of course I like fall in love with it. And at the time, we don't live in the house we live in now. We live across town, and where this school is, it was literally like a 55-minute drive one way. So I was in the car 55 minutes to practice for 2 hours and then come back. So it was a lot. But I fell in love with it. The school I'm at is it's so awesome, and all the parents are so involved, and the kids are so good, and that makes it that makes it so much more enjoyable to coach when you have kids that like buy into your system and what you're doing and they trust you. And I always tell like this year in JV volleyball, I have a bunch of new little 6th grade babies and they're so little and they haven't played. And I always tell them like, I'm still building my relationship with y'all. And I was like, look over on that varsity net. Some of those girls, they're on their 3rd or 4th year playing for me. I'm like, I could literally tell them to like, go headbutt that wall and they would do it. Because they fully trust me because we built that relationship. So I'm always like, we're going to get there. We're just, we're on week 2 of knowing each other. So it's so fun to like have the individual relationships with every player that I have because they're also much like being a mother. You have to coach them different too. Like some kids, I have this one player from the moment I met her, I could coach her as hard as I wanted and she won't say anything but nod her head and say, yes, ma'am, and go do it. But I have some other players, if I coach them that hard, they bust out into tears and they can't handle it. So, you have to kind of learn how to not parent, but coach each one of them.
And not compare them.
Right. And not compare them. No. And I tell them not to compare themselves to each other too. Like you're only comparing yourself to yourself the day before. That's all you got to be better.
Well, you are knocking it all out of the park. And I can see knowing you for all these years, like this is where you're supposed to be. Your whole story makes sense and it got you to exactly where you're supposed to be.
I tell Patrick, when I'm like my coaching, I really feel like that's what I'm called to do is be a coach and be a mom. And they're very similar in a lot of aspects. Mm-hmm. And I often say, this is when he has to give me the reminder of everything I did. Cause I'm like, I hate that what I'm most passionate about and what I feel like I'm best out yields like zero money. And I do get the pay I get for coaching. The kids go to that private school. So we use it to pay their tuition. So it is still going towards something. But it's not like every 2 weeks, Patrick's kind of paycheck. It's a minimal stipend kind of situation. So I'm like, I hate that what I'm so passionate about doesn't yield us any money. And that's when he's like, if you're passionate about it, do it. And also, you did all of these things from everything you did.
Yeah, exactly. You worked hard to be able to do what it is that you do. Awesome. All right, we're going to go into, it's Disney. We have to do some magical stuff. And I mean, we've touched on some magical things, but like you said, you were previously a travel agent. You were like, again, you were a travel agent before travel agents were like travel agents, before everybody was a travel agent. So what would you say is like your best tip for somebody booking a trip to Disney?
Well, ironically, I would say to use a travel agent because they don't cost anything. And travel agents, I know Courtney did it for a hot minute. They work so hard behind the scenes. And I honestly just got burnt out. I did it for 10 years and my client base was so big because I would often tell Patrick or whoever, if I really sat down and like timed how many hours I worked on this particular client's trip and compare that to the commission, I'm making way less than minimum wage. Yep. Like they're constantly, and then the added pressures of like, it's such a time sensitive job because people want like immediate gratification, I guess. So like you get an email for a quote. If you wait 2 days because your kid was sick, they've already booked with someone else or booked on their own. And you got to be up on time to do, dining. And there's pressure if the client wants certain dinings. And then that's really out of the travel agent's control if it's there or not. But there's still a pressure of they've asked for this. They're using me for this service. So I need to get them this dining situation. So, and if you don't get it, then you're constantly checking to see if you can get them in some private with it. Or then a promo drops. I listened to y'all's podcast about Courtney, and she was talking about how like merch back in the day would just drop and you didn't have warning and you had to drop everything to go get it. That was like a promo. Disney drop a 30% off promo, and I'm freaking getting groceries at Target. And I'm like, all right. And I got to rush home, get my binder out, find every client who qualifies, and then try to get this offer added to save them money. And if you don't do it fast enough, they're going to be like, hey, did you get that added? So-and-so got this added. So there's a lot of like pressure, and you're not always on your own time. You're at the mercy of Disney. So point being, they work really hard. So use them because it costs you nothing. It doesn't cost you anything extra, especially now with how Disney is and all the things that have changed. And like you might as well get some free help that doesn't cost you any extra.
Definitely. Even I've started
but
using
also,
a travel
like,
agent.
Be nice to your travel agent, use a travel agent, but like don't abuse them. They're a human and they're working this as a job. So like, please don't call me at 10 p.m. and like, please don't be mean to me if I can't get you Cinderella's royal table for a party of 15 on Christmas Day. Like there are limitations to our abilities here.
That was a hard balance with like, you don't have, especially when you're starting because you want to build your client base. So I would answer the 10 p.m. emails because I wanted, but then when I got grew as much as I did over 10 years. That's part of the reason why I let it go, because it felt more like of a burden than joy, because I was constantly on my computer and I was constantly trying to answer this email and get this reservation and do this for this client. And while I was home with the kids, my phone or my computer was always in my hand. And I remember telling Patrick, our kids are going to remember, Patrick can leave his work at work. So when he comes home, he's fun dad, Patrick. He's everything I just told y'all he was. And I was like, our kids are going to remember you playing with them like that after work. And they're going to remember me being here, but always having a computer or a phone in my hand, because I was having to work. I didn't get to focus and play with them. So because of that and all it's tough to balance. Travel agents work really hard. That's why I gave it up, because it was overpowering me being a mom, and that wasn't worth it.
Awesome. So use a travel agent.
Use a travel agent, yes.
Courtney, you got one? Magical
Yeah.
question?
I just want to know, like, because you were a travel agent, were there recommendations you had, or like must do dining experiences or character meets, or like what's on your must do list?
Like for anyone or for my family?
Well, let's say for your family.
Okay. Well, my family, I feel like we're unique because everyone Disney's different. And so we do have a couple traditions. Like we're always going to order like the Disney pizza to get delivered one night of the trip. Like that's like our thing. We're always going to find a way to get ice cream. I don't know if that's tradition, but we're going to get ice cream on the trip. But we don't always do the same thing every trip. Like our next trip, for example, is in October, and we're doing the Halloween party, and we're just staying 3 nights, I think. So we're staying at Bay Lake because we're going to be at Magic Kingdom. If we were going for food and wine, we'd stay at the boardwalk. So we like don't do all 4 parks every time. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like different trips are kind of like centered around what activity we're going down there for. So I don't know that we have a ton of like traditions or must-dos, other than like Maylee and Maverick won't let us go, and we have to ride Teacups and Dumbo right now. That's like what they're into, and Maverick's kind of hit or miss if he wants to ride a roller coaster still. Some trips he does and some trips he doesn't. So Teacups and Dumbo is like where it's at for him right now.
Your traditions are going to change every year, I think, with the kids. And yeah. What you just said, your must-dos and your traditions, but I was thinking of, my memory is really bad today. Irrelevant, I suppose. You were talking about something and now I completely forget. Oh, okay. How long you've been visiting Disney for like ever though?
Yeah.
Like since I know you've posted pictures since you were like itty bitty.
My parents took, I think the first time I went, I was like 15 or 18 months old, and I think we were actually in Daytona. Of course, I don't remember this. It's just what I've been told. But we were in Daytona, and they were like, we're right here. Let's drive over to Magic Kingdom for the day. My dad tells the story about they went, and they were going to stay at the Polynesian. This is like 1988. So you can just walk in and be like, hey, you got a room, that type of situation. And they went in to get a room, and it was going to be like $250. And my parents were like, absolutely not, and left, which seems funny now because $250 is like Pop Century now. But
crazy.
Back then, it wasn't. It was like the $800 to $1,000 or whatever Polynesian costs now. So he always says I should have done that because they didn't pay it, but it was a lot more money back then than it is now. So that was my first trip. We spent the day at Magic Kingdom, and then I think we went every single summer. There was maybe when my sister was born we didn't go that summer, but every summer we went growing up. That was like what we chose. Even if they gave us a choice, even if we did a cruise, we'd find a way to go to Disney for a day or two before we got on the cruise. Like as we got older and in our teens, we still always wanted to go back.
So Disney's, it's just always been it.
Yeah.
All right. And I love that you still, your trips, like you bring your nuclear family, right? Like you, Patrick, and the kids, but then you also do a lot of trips with your family. Like your parents come. I think that's really sweet.
At one point, my parents had annual passes, and then they didn't renew them when the COVID stuff happened, so now they can't get them back right now.
Oh.
But when they came almost every trip with us when they had annual passes, which is good for them. Like, of course, they want to be. My kids are their only grandkids right now. My sister is about to have a baby in about a month, but right now my kids are the only ones.
Exciting.
But then it's fun for me to see them with them.
Yeah.
And do the things that we used to do and ride the rides. And my dad's riding Dumbo with Maylee, and I have pictures of me and my dad riding Dumbo.
I love that.
That's fun to see.
I love that.
And extra hands. If you can take, maybe that's my tip. If you can take grandparents or in-laws or whatever, take them because it's extra hands and it's very helpful.
Yeah. I already asked my mom, like, you're coming, right?
almost every time my parents come, they stay in their own room, and at least one of the nights they'll take the kids for the night. So then me and Patrick can go to the parks by ourselves, or we can go sit down and eat dinner or something like that. So there's multiple benefits of having grandparents come.
Yeah, I can't wait for those days. All right, we're going to do some rapid fire questions, and then you are going to give us your tip to living magically. So rapid fire, you got to answer quick, okay? Even though I already know this answer. Your favorite park?
Hollywood Studios.
Which is interesting.
Favorite resort?
Boardwalk.
Ooh. Oh. Okay. Sorry, I know rapid fire, but Boardwalk because of location or Boardwalk because the actual like resort?
A little bit because of location, because mine and Patrick's favorite parks are Hollywood and then Epcot. So we like being able to walk. Also a little bit because that was the first resort me and Patrick stayed at together when we were dating. So it has that touch to it. But then
okay. Because I was going to say those rooms need to be like updated a little bit.
It does need to be updated a little bit. But the location cannot be beat.
I agree.
Of our first cannot be beat.
Your must ride at each park.
Okay, tell me the parks. I can do it.
Epcot.
Soarin'.
Hollywood Studios.
Toy Story Mania.
Ooh, good one. Animal Kingdom.
Oh. I guess Safari. I could take or leave Animal Kingdom rides. I mean, Safari, but I could ride them all or ride none of them. It doesn't matter.
Courtney is so upset. That's her number one park.
I mean, I like to be there. If I don't ride, I'll just like walk around and enjoy it all, and take it in. I don't have to ride stuff when we go there.
And to make Courtney feel better, isn't your sister Peyton, isn't Animal Kingdom her favorite park?
Oh, yeah, it is. That Peyton loves Animal Kingdom ever since we went.
Good.
And ride at Magic Kingdom.
People Mover.
Yeah, People Mover, where is that?
Heck yeah. All right, favorite Disney snack?
I think cheeseburger spring rolls maybe. Or coconut soft serve. I do like the coconut soft serve a lot too. One of those two.
Where's coconut soft serve?
It's at Aloha Isle or wherever Dole Whip is, but I don't think it's always there, because some trips they'll have like raspberry or something, but then some trips they'll have the coconut soft serve. So I don't know if it's seasonal or if they like there, but sometimes I get real worked up and excited and I get there and it's not on the menu and then I'm really let down. So it's good if it's there.
Like pro tip, that's cool. I didn't even know they had that.
It's good.
I actually don't know. Yeah, I don't think you've ever had that when I've been with you.
Really?
Yeah, because I don't know if I know about it.
I used to like Dole Whip, and then when I started getting that, I don't like the Dole Whip as much because I like the coconut.
Fair enough. All right. To end this, can you give us your tip to living magically, like something that you just learned throughout your life that you can share with us?
Yes. Can I do 2 points?
Yeah.
Okay. So first, I would say comparison, like I said earlier, for the moms, like any part of your life, if you're comparing your life or where you are in life or what you're doing in that moment to someone else, you're not comparing apples to apples. And the only person you need to compare yourself to is you from the day before. Are you doing better than you were the day before? And that's the only comparison you need in your life. You know how people say, what's it like? Time is a thief. I think like comparison is like a thief of joy. Like it's going to make you not live happily if you're constantly worried about what everyone else is doing or what everyone else thinks about what you're doing. So don't
100%.
compare.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry.
hey, Maylee.
Mom life.
Okay. So second one would be just define what you're passionate about. And if that changes, that's okay too. Because at one point I like eat, slept, and breathed Walter and Rosie and travel agent, and I was successful at all of those. But then it came a point where it wasn't doing it for me anymore, and it wasn't filling my cup how it needed to, and so I let it go. And I found other things that fill my cup, like being a mom and coaching. And also, if it's not everyone's in the same financial situation, so I want to be delicate when I say this, because clearly I'm blessed that Patrick has a job where I don't have to have an income.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in that situation, don't let the fear of the amount of the paycheck or lack thereof a paycheck affect your decision on what you're going to be passionate about. Because that held me back a little bit from doing it. That held me back a little bit from making moves, and it shouldn't have, because even though it was scary, now that we're here, we have much less money than we had when I had 2 jobs, but I'm 10 times happier than when I had 2 jobs. So Just find what you're passionate about. Even if you have to work, it doesn't have to be your job. Find what you're passionate about as a hobby on the side of your job. Just whatever you're passionate about, incorporated it in your daily life or at least weekly. Incorporate it.
When those are very, very, very great tips for living magically. And that's in any source of, like, you don't have to have a business to use those tips. Like, that's just in general. Awesome.
Like, listen to this podcast while you're on a walk. Go on a walk once a week and listen to this podcast. Like, whatever
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
And before you leave us, where can everybody find you on social media? And I said it before, but
really just on Instagram, I guess. Mom on the Monorail. I will say I'm streaky. I should do it better. Hello, she's here. I should do. I'm not quite like as good as you, Shelby. Like you're the queen of social media right now.
I
like
am not.
At times I show spurts of that, and then I'll go MIA for 3 months. So it just depends on what's taking priority. But if I'm active, it's pretty fun to follow. So Mom on the Monorail, it's Instagram. That's all I got.
Awesome. Everybody go follow Ashton. Thank you for being our first guest.
Thank you for having me. It was so fun. I'm so proud of y'all, and I'm so glad y'all get to do this.
We are so proud of you. Your story, I can't wait for everybody to hear this, because you really are. I hope you know that you're like inspiring, and that you did. Everything you're doing is wonderful.
Thank you. Thank y'all for having me.
Of course. Awesome. So we'll talk real soon.
All right. See y'all.
Bye.